Hello, welcome to my channel, Bibbity Bobbity Books. My name is Ellie and I enjoy reading and I'm very new to booktube, so bear with me if I look a little bit uncomfortable in this video. But I thought I would try and film a sit-down video today. I thought I'd do a tag video and I've chosen the infamous mid-year freakout tag just because I really enjoy watching other people do this video and I thought it would be a really great way to kind of chat you through some of the books that I've read this year and to give you a bit of a flavour for the kinds of books that I enjoy reading. This is probably going to end up being a long video, so please do grab yourself a cup of tea and a snack, and I suppose we better get straight into it. So the first question is, what is the best book you've read so far in 2021? So this is a really hard question because I've read so many great books this year, but after much deliberation I have decided to go for The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. I love this book. So this is the first book in an adult fantasy series that's set in Russia during the rise of Christianity, and we follow the main character Vasilisa, who's a bit of a wild child. She's very much connected to nature and her traditions, and one day her father marries and her stepmother comes to town, and she very much kind of disagrees with Vasilisa's way of life. Her stepmother is very afraid, she's very religious, and she thinks that the spirits and the mythological creatures that Vasilisa can see are actually demons, and the plot kind of goes from there really. But there's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot of political intrigue, the writing is stunning, it's absolutely beautiful, the descriptions and everything in here, and you know, it's set in Russia where it's really cold, so you've got all of that kind of snowy, cold kind of scenery in here. I feel like it would be perfect for winter time. And it's also really dark. Like, I was quite surprised. This is the first book that I've read that's based on Russian folklore, and I loved it, and I really enjoyed how kind of creepy it was. And I wasn't expecting that going in, because I kind of thought this was just going to be a fairy tale retelling. I thought it was going to be, you know, a bit of a romance, quite light and fluffy, but it's actually quite dark and quite scary in places, and I love that. I really enjoyed it. I also enjoyed the themes of kind of organised religion versus tradition folklore. I think that was done really well in this book, and also the use of fear to control people and to kind of enforce people to take on religious practices. I thought that was a really interesting theme in this book. But overall it was wonderfully atmospheric, really gripping, and I straight away jumped into the next two books and have since finished this series and can confirm it is one of my favourite series of all time now. So highly recommend this one. The next question, so I'm looking down here because I've got them written out on my laptop. But the next question is, what is the best sequel you've read so far in 2021? So for this one I am going to pick A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers. So this is the second book in the Wayfarers series. The first book is A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and I was really worried when I went into this one that I wouldn't enjoy it as much as the first book, because the first book is excellent, but I needn't have worried because this was also wonderful. Becky Chambers is quickly becoming one of my favourite authors of all time. I just love her books that I've read so far. So yeah, so this is, as I said, the second book in a sci-fi series. I would say this is a little bit more dark than A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which is essentially just a big fuzzy hug of a book, but that's because this explores some quite serious themes of slavery, consumerism, childhood, motherhood, the rights of sentient beings. So there's quite some heavy stuff in this book, but what I love about Becky Chambers is her writing is inherently optimistic. So even though she writes about some quite serious topics and some quite hard-hitting subjects, you end up feeling uplifted after you've read her books, and it's always so heartwarming, and everybody needs to read her books basically. That's the end. Pick up her books, they're wonderful, you won't regret it. So the next question says, what is a new release that you haven't read yet but want to? Okay, so there's a couple of new YA fantasy series that have come out recently that I've had my eye on. The first one is For the Wolf by Hannah Witten. So hang on, let me just call up the description on my laptop. Okay, so For the Wolf by Hannah Witten. So the description of this book literally says, for fans of Uprooted and The Bear and the Nightingale. Check, check. I love both of those books. It says, here comes a dark fantasy novel about a young woman who must be sacrificed to the legendary Wolf of the Wood to save her kingdom. But not all legends are true, and the wolf isn't the only danger lurking in the Wilderwood. So yeah, I mean, this is checking all of my tick boxes. We've got a creepy woodland setting. We've got a fairy tale retelling. I'm sure there's going to be lots of angst and lots of drama, and I'm just really, really excited for that one. Another one that I've had my eye on is Witches Steeped in Gold by Shannon Smart. Again, I think this looks amazing. It's got a beautiful cover. And this one is a Jamaican-inspired fantasy about two enemy witches who must enter into a deadly alliance to take down a common enemy. I mean, that just sounds great, doesn't it? I love anything that's got a witchy vibe. You know, two people coming together. I'm sure there's going to be lots of tension and drama, and I'm just here for it, and I'm very, very excited about that one. So the next question says, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? Now, I've only got one book on pre-order this year, and that is Midnight in Everwood by M.A. Kisnier. And I just think that looks wonderful. So that is a retelling of The Nutcracker, which is my favourite ballet. I actually watched that a couple of years back around Christmas time, and I thought it was so wonderful. So yeah, it's a retelling of The Nutcracker. I think it's going to be so perfect for Christmas time. It also says in the description that it's for fans of The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Love that book. So I have really, really high hopes for this one. I think it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be perfect for Christmas. Christmas is one of my favourite times of the year, so anything that's going to get me into that Christmassy mood, I am here for, and I can just imagine snuggling up with a hot chocolate by the Christmas tree, and I'm so excited for it. Okay, so the next question is a juicy one. It is, what is your biggest disappointment? So I had to think about this one, and I've ended up picking A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. I'm really sorry if you love this book, but it just wasn't for me, and it's such a shame because I love Uprooted by Naomi Novik. So I was quite surprised that I didn't get on with this one. So if you don't know, this is about a magical school that's filled with monsters, and the aim is essentially to survive and to make it through graduation. So I think the premise sounds really good, but something just fell flat for me with this one. I think it was the writing. So this has a really sort of conversational style writing, and there are moments in the book where the protagonist literally breaks the fourth wall and talks to you directly as a reader, and I just found that quite like off-putting. It really took me out of the story, so I just didn't gel with the writing, and there was also a lot of exposition in here, like a lot of info dumping. And I understand that, you know, she's trying to create this complex new fantasy world, so you do need to have a little bit of that kind of info dump, but I just felt like it was too much and it really made the story drag for me. So yeah, A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik, not for me, but if you think it sounds interesting, give it a go, see what you think, and I would love to have a chat with you about it. So the next question is, what is your biggest surprise? Now for this one, I've decided to pick All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace. Now, for some reason, I had really low expectations for this book. I got it gifted to me by my boyfriend for Christmas, and as I say, for some reason, didn't have high hopes for this one, but I ended up absolutely loving this, and I devoured it in like 3 days, which is really quick for me because I'm a very slow reader, so I absolutely sailed through this. But yeah, I mean, who doesn't love a pirate story? Throw in some amazing writing, some beautiful descriptions, some creepy blood magic, some YA angst, and I mean, you got yourself a winner. Highly recommend this book. Perfect for summer as well because it's all set on the sea and set in a world where there's lots of different islands and you're kind of sailing between the different islands, and it just has such a wonderful sort of summery feel. So yeah, pick this up. This is a perfect one for this summer. Okay, so question number 7 is, who is your new favourite author? So for this one, I had to pick Erin Morgenstern. Now this is a bit of a cheat because I did read The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern at the end of last year and absolutely loved it. So I suppose she's not technically a new author to me this year, but I read The Starless Sea at the beginning of this year and absolutely loved it, and I've just completely fallen head over heels in love with Erin Morgenstern's writing. It is so lyrical and beautiful and whimsical and wonderful, and I just couldn't not pick her. So yeah, I know The Starless Sea is a bit of a Marmite book. You either love it or hate it. But I am very pleased to say that I am in the love it category. I just thought this was such a love letter to storytelling, and I am completely in awe of how Erin Morgenstern managed to create something so intricate and managed to interlace so many overlapping stories that all kind of tied together with common themes to create like a soup of beautiful metaphors, and to create like a really wild and unpredictable adventure in this book. I loved it and would highly recommend. This is also the only book that I've ever read where I didn't have a clue what was going on half the time, but I didn't actually mind because I was just so enwrapped in the story and so like loving being lost in the underground library that I just didn't really mind. And also I tend to find that when I'm reading stories, I'm often like kind of thinking, oh, how long have I got to the end? I'm kind of racing towards the end, but I wasn't in a race when I read this book. I was just working my way through it, loving the writing and just thoroughly having a great time. So yes, Erin Morgenstern. So the next question is, who is your newest fictional crush? Now I found this one quite a difficult one to choose because I can't say that I've really fallen in love with any characters in any books that I've read really. Nothing's like screaming to me. So I found this one hard to choose from. I mean, I would say Bastian from All the Stars and Teeth by Adeline Grace, but I feel like because I've already picked this book, that seems like a bit of a cheat. I feel like I need to pick something else. So it's really hard. I mean, I'm gonna say maybe Nikolai from Siege and Storm, which is the second book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. Unpopular opinion, the second book is actually my favourite in the series. I love the second book, I think because of Nikolai. He carried it for me. He's so funny, so full of himself, but also secretly quite vulnerable, and he's really loyal. So yeah, maybe Nikolai. I actually read the whole Shadow and Bone series this year in preparation for the Netflix show and had a great time. I didn't actually read this when it first came out. I can see why people have complaints about this series. It is very tropey, it is very kind of old YA, but I was here for it. I had a good time, and as I say, the third book was actually probably my favourite in the series, which I know is unpopular opinion, but that's the way it is. I'm also going to give a shout out to Cassian from A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas. This is the fourth book in the Court of Thorns and Roses series, which is a YA fantasy series. A Court of Mist and Fury, book 2 in the series, is actually one of my favourite books of all time. And while I feel like the rest of the series is kind of okay, A Court of Mist and Fury is great. But anyway, that's beside the point. Cassian from A Court of Silver Flames, I definitely ship the romance between him and Nesta in this book. I think the chemistry is really hot in here. There's a lot of smutty scenes in here, so if you like that, this is going to be the series for you. But yes, I do ship the romance, although if I'm being completely honest, it's all about Reese. I'm not wrong. It's definitely all about Reese. I'm not going to lie about it, but yes, quick shout out to Cassian. So the next question is newest favourite character, and this was a hard one, but I've gone with Jupiter North from Nevermore. So this is actually the third book in the Nevermore series, which is the book that I've most recently read, but this is a wonderful middle grade series. It's actually my favourite middle grade series, I think possibly of all time. High praises, I know. But yes, This story, it follows the main character Morrigan Crow, who is destined to die on her 12th birthday, but she gets rescued by Jupiter North and whisked off to the magical world of Nevermore, and the plot goes from there, and it is just truly magical. I love this story. But yes, I'm going to pick Jupiter because he is just so unapologetically quirky. He is so funny, so loyal, and I just think that he is like really fun to read about, and I think that he would be amazing to just hang out with, and I just want to go to Nevermore. Basically, I want him to take me to Nevermore so that I can experience the wonderful world for myself. But yes, Jupiter North, wonderful character. Apologies if the lighting and the angle has changed a bit. My battery ran out, so sorry, I just had to go and change that. But we are up to question number 10, which is, what is a book that made you cry? Now, I cry at most things, but for some reason I had a really hard time remembering which books made me cry. None of the books that I've read have really stood out to me as being like big cry books, but what I've decided to pick is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. Now this is such a sweet book, and it definitely made me tear up in places. I distinctly remember, just because of how wholesome it was and how sweet it is. So this is happy tears, not sad tears. So this is a wonderful book that follows the main character Linus Baker, who is a caseworker, and he gets sent on a work trip to the House in the Cerulean Sea to basically check up on the orphanage to make sure that it is all by the books. And he meets a series of children who are there who have magical abilities. They are all wonderful, precious angels, and I love them all. And it's just such a wholesome book. It's got that kind of found family trope. There's also a queer romance in here, which is lovely. And it's just such a fun time, and it definitely had me tearing up in places. So I'm going to pick The House in the Cerulean Sea. So the next question is, what is a book that made you happy? And for this one, I am going to pick Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. So this is another wonderful middle grade story. It's quite similar in feel to Nevermore, but this is just wonderful. There's something about middle grade that I just think is so magical and is such a fun time and just makes my heart happy. So yes, I love this story. So I think this has been described as kind of like Men in Black for children, but we essentially follow the main character Amari, who is trying to find her brother who is lost essentially, and she gets sucked into this magical world, and it's a wonderful adventure. There's lots of different kind of creatures and things in here. It's so imaginative, and it's really funny and light-hearted, and I highly recommend. And also this edition is stunning as well. I love the glittery writing, and this has got silver sprayed edges as well. Also, look at underneath the dust jacket. It is so pretty. So that made me happy as well. So yes, Amari and the Night Brothers, definitely recommend picking this one up if you want something that's going to uplift you and make you just feel happy and have a really wonderful adventure. So the next question is, what is the most beautiful book that you've read this year? And I am going to pick Frost Heart by Jamie Littler. So this is his debut novel. It is another wonderful middle grade story. I came across this one from Gavin, from How to Train Your Gavin, who loves this book, and it was a great recommendation because I had a really fun time with it. But yes, this story follows Ash and his grumpy Yeti guardian, and they kind of find themselves on the Frost Heart, which is a sleigh, and they go off on this epic adventure through the snowy scenery to try and find Ash's parents, and he kind of discovers himself along the way, and he has magical powers, but I don't want to give too much away. But yes, I just feel like this book is stunning. I mean, look at the cover. It is just beautiful, and it's actually illustrated by Jamie himself. It's got like a little hole through there. It's beautiful, and also the illustrations in this book are just fabulous as well. As I say, it's all illustrated by Jamie Littler himself, so that is just stunning. It's just such a beautiful book, so I had to pick this one for that question. I'm also going to give a shout out to My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. So this is the first horror book that I think I've ever read, because I'm a wuss and I'm new to the horror genre, and I thoroughly enjoyed this book. So this is set in the 80s, as you can tell from the beautiful cover, and it's obviously about an exorcism. It's a perfect horror book to read in the summer, I would say, because a lot of this is set in high school during the summer, and there's a beach house, and obviously it's really creepy, so it's perfect for like a summerween, for like a Halloween in the summer. If you're looking for something creepy but you want to also have those summery vibes, this is perfect for you. And it's also a really fun time. As I said, it's set in the 80s, which is so fun. The 80s references in here are so on point, and each chapter is actually given like the title of a 80s song, which I think is really fun. So each chapter has the song title of like an 80s hit, so you could actually, if you wanted to, kind of listen along with the soundtrack to like fully get yourself in the 80s vibe whilst you're reading this book. But yes, I love this one, and I had to give it a shout out because I just think this is one of the coolest covers that I've ever seen. It is so 80s, it looks exactly like a VHS, and it's just so unique, and I am obsessed with it, so I had to give a shout out to this one as well. Okay, so we have made it to the final question. So the final one says, what books do you need to finish by the end of the year? And for this one, I am going to say that I need to finish the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. So I read the first book, The Final Empire, at the end of last year, and I love this story. So this is a adult epic fantasy series. It's set in the Final Empire, which is this land where ash falls from the sky that's being ruled by the Lord Ruler. And basically we follow the main character Kelsier, who is trying to overthrow the Lord Ruler. We also follow Vin, who is a young girl who kind of leaves this this band of thieves to go and help Kelsier with his mission to overthrow the Final Empire. So that's kind of the premise of this book, but I love this one. It's so fast paced, the action scenes are written so wonderfully in this book, and it also has such an amazing magic system in here. I feel like we've come to expect that from Brandon Sanderson. He's kind of known for his great magic systems, but I love the one in here. It's based around allomancy. So basically, some people in this world can use metals to harness their magical powers. So some people can burn one type of metal and use its powers, and then we also have people who are called Mistborn, who are able to burn all the different types of metals and use all of their powers. But the way that Brandon Sanderson describes the magic system in here and how it's used during the action scenes and things is just so well done, and I thoroughly enjoyed this one. So yeah, as I say, I need to get to the other books in this series because I'm excited about it, but I just haven't got round to it. I think partly because I read this book, as I say, towards the end of last year, and then I got my partner hooked on this book, and we both reread, well, I reread it and he read it for the first time on audio, and we both really enjoyed that. And then we started to read the next one, The Well of Ascension, on audio, but we just didn't have time to sit down and listen to it together. We both work quite different schedules, and we just kind of never picked it up properly. So I need to correct that by the end of this year. I need to finally finish this series, because I am really excited about it and I want to know what happens next, and I've heard that it just gets better and better. So I cannot be more excited to get to those books by the end of this year. But anyway, that's about it from me. That kind of wraps up this video. Thank you so much for listening to me rambling on about all of these books. I hope it hasn't been too chaotic, and I hope that you've enjoyed this, and I hope that it gives you a bit of a flavour of some of the books that I've read. If you've read any of these books, please do let me know, because I'd love to chat to you about it. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a follow. As I say, I'm very new to BookTube, so would appreciate any support, and I'm just really keen to get involved in the community and to start chatting with everybody about books. So yes, thank you so much, and I will see you next time with another video. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.